All right, so get that we're diving deep into AI today.
AI.
Specifically, how to make sure it actually does what it's supposed to. Like we want to avoid the whole robot uprising scenario.
Yeah, definitely important.
And we've got this research paper all about AI model validation techniques. And
Really?
let me tell you, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing how much actually goes into making sure AI is reliable,
I know it's crazy, right?
especially these days.
Yeah,
AI is everywhere now.
it is.
The stakes just keep getting higher.
You're right. So like imagine a self-driving car just completely freaking out because someone put a sticker on a stop sign.
Yeah.
Or, how about that chatbot that learned to be hateful from all the trolls on the internet?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Talk about a PR nightmare.
Yeah, those are some of the high-profile cases that really show why AI validation is so important.
Yeah.
It's all about making sure we're anticipating these problems, and putting these models through really rigorous tests before we release them out into the world.
Right. Okay. So let's break this down a little bit.
All
We're
right.
talking about AI models, which are incredibly complex things. Where do you even start to validate something like that?
Well, I think one of the most fundamental things is robustness.
Robustness.
Yeah, can the AI handle unexpected inputs or tricky situations without completely falling apart?
Okay.
It's almost like we're stress testing the AI to see if it cracks under pressure.
So like throwing curveballs at it and seeing how it adapts?
Exactly. So one method researchers use is something called adversarial example testing.
Adversarial example testing.
Yeah, they intentionally try to trick the AI. Like, for example, with a self-driving car, researchers messed with the stop sign using stickers, and the car just couldn't recognize it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
But just a couple of stickers took down a sophisticated AI.
Well, it really exposed the vulnerability, right? Like, even small, insignificant changes can throw an AI off if it hasn't been trained to deal with that kind of variation.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's
So, okay, how do you even make an AI more robust then?
well,
Is it just like giving it more training data?
it's part of it, but it goes beyond just the volume of data. It's more about the variety,
Yeah.
and how representative that data is.
Uh-huh.
We need to expose AI to a wide range of situations
Okay.
and environments, different inputs during the training process.
So like showing a self-driving car,
Yeah.
Images of stop signs covered in snow or graffiti or even like bird droppings.
Exactly. The more varied the training data is,
Okay.
the better the AI can handle these real-world scenarios that might be different from the perfect conditions that it learned on in the beginning.
Okay. That makes sense. So this robustness thing seems really important for things like self-driving cars or AI used in healthcare, but I
Yeah,
bet it's not the only piece of the puzzle.
right.
What are some other aspects of AI that really need to be validated?
Well, another one is making sure that AI models are fair
Okay.
and unbiased
Okay.
because we want these systems to make decisions based on merit and not some kind of like preconceived notion or historical bias that could be lurking in the data that they learn from.
Right, because we've seen some pretty alarming examples of AI being biased, especially in things like hiring or loan applications,
Yeah.
and that can have really real consequences.
Definitely it can. And the thing is, AI can inherit these biases from the data it's trained on. Right. So imagine a hiring algorithm trained on data from a company with a long history of gender imbalance in leadership.
I can already see where this is going.
Yeah.
It's not good,
No, so it might learn to associate leadership with being male.
even though that's obviously not true.
Right.
That's 2025. Come on.
I know. But it could unfairly penalize women even if they're just as qualified.
Yeah, okay, so how do you even begin to catch and fix these biases?
Right.
Is there like a way to debias an AI?
Well, there are a few techniques. One is to really analyze the training data, looking for patterns or imbalances that might be causing the bias. So for instance, let's say we have a data set for facial recognition, and it's mostly made up of images of lighter-skinned people.
Right, I see what you mean.
Then it might not be able to accurately recognize people with darker skin.
Yeah, I've heard about those issues.
Yeah, so making sure the training data is diverse and representative is a crucial first step,
Right.
but it doesn't stop there.
So it's not just about the data itself, but how the AI is actually processing and interpreting the data.
That's right. We need to also look at the AI's outputs, the decisions it's making,
Okay.
and see if those decisions are disproportionately affecting certain groups.
Uh-huh.
And this is where fairness metrics come into play.
Fairness metrics. What is that? Some kind of AI report card?
You could think of it that way.
Okay.
They help us measure potential bias by looking at things like loan approval rates
Like
or
what-
hiring rates across different demographics.
Right.
And if we see big gaps, that might be a sign of bias in the algorithm.
So it's basically a way to check if the AI is playing fair, no matter someone's background or who they are.
It's about making sure the AI is making decisions based on the stuff that's actually relevant and not on things like gender or race or religion.
Right. Okay. This fairness thing is really making me think about the responsibility we have.
Yeah.
When we develop and use AI, it's not just about making it work, but making sure it works fairly.
Yeah, absolutely. As AI becomes more and more a part of our lives, we have to be really careful about the impact it has,
For sure.
both the good and the bad.
Okay, so we've talked about robustness
Uh,
and fairness.
yeah.
What other critical pieces are there when we're talking about validating these powerful AI models?
Well, another critical piece is explainability.
Explainability.
Yeah, this is about understanding why an AI makes a particular decision.
Right.
It's
Okay.
like lifting the curtain and seeing how the sausage is made.
So kind of demystifying the whole process.
Exactly, and this is especially important for things like medical diagnoses or live-in applications, where people deserve to know why an AI reached a decision that affects them.
Right. Makes sense.
But it's also important for things that might seem less important, like
Reads.
movie recommendations.
Okay.
Because if an AI can explain its reasoning, people are more likely to trust and have confidence in its suggestions.
Oh, so instead of just saying, hey, you might like this movie,
Mm.
it could say, you might like this movie because you enjoyed these other movies with similar themes or actors.
Exactly. It's about giving context and transparency, which is really important if we want people to actually use and accept these AI systems.
Right. That makes sense. So how do you make an AI more explainable?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Like, do we have to teach it to speak English and tell us its whole thought process?
Well, it's not quite that simple,
Okay.
but the goal is to make the decision-making process more clear.
Okay.
And one technique we use is feature importance analysis.
Feature importance analysis.
Yeah, this helps us identify the key factors that an AI is using to make its decisions.
So, for example, if an AI is recommending a certain stock to buy, you could see if it's based on the company's financial performance or maybe market trends or even something totally different like news sentiment.
Exactly. And this can be really helpful for understanding how the AI works, but also for catching potential bias or flaws in its thinking.
I can see how that would be valuable.
Yeah.
You could spot an AI that's basing its decision on things that shouldn't be factors at all.
Exactly. Explainability lets us hold AI accountable for its choices,
Okay.
to make sure it's not making weird recommendations or using discriminatory factors.
That's really interesting. It's like we're trying to make AI less of a mysterious black box and more of a partner we can actually understand and trust.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
But I have a feeling there's even more to this story.
There is.
Right. What other challenges and techniques should we know about?
Well, there's a whole other side to validation that focuses on protecting AI systems from people who want to misuse them or attack them.
What?
We call this security and safety validation.
Oh, right. Like hackers trying to mess with the AI or steal data.
Exactly.
That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know it sounds futuristic,
Yeah,
but it's a real threat.
It is.
As AI gets more powerful and gets used in important systems like healthcare or finance, it becomes a big target for people who want to do bad things.
So how do you even protect an AI from something like that?
Well,
Do they have AI bodyguards or something?
not bodyguards, but we do have special techniques and strategies.
Okay.
One is called red teaming.
Red teaming.
Yeah, it's kind of like a game of cat and mouse.
Okay.
We have teams of security experts, we often call them red teams, and they try to break the AI. They try to find its weak points and exploit them.
So like ethical hackers, but for AI.
That's a great way to think about it. They try all sorts of things to trick the AI, to manipulate the inputs, and sometimes even try to take over its decision-making.
Well, what kind of things do they actually try to do?
Well, let's say you've got an AI system designed to catch fraudulent transactions.
Okay.
The red team might try to make fake transactions that look totally normal to see if they can get past the AI's radar.
So they're like AI criminals trying to catch the real AI criminals.
In a way, yeah, they're thinking like attackers, so we can figure out where the AI is vulnerable and then work with the developers to make it stronger.
It's like a whole arms race, but in the digital world of AI.
That's a great way to put it.
It's crazy.
As AI gets smarter, so do the ways of attacking it.
Right.
So it's this back and forth between security experts and attackers, which is crucial if we want to stay ahead of the game.
Wow. So it's not just about making the AI smart. It's about making it tough enough to resist the bad guys.
Exactly. And the security part of validation is becoming more and more important as AI gets used in really sensitive areas like finance, healthcare, and even national security.
That makes sense. Okay, so this is all really insightful.
Yeah.
But I got to ask, is there like an endpoint to this whole AI validation process. Is there ever a moment where you can say, all right, this AI is good to go, we've checked every box?
Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple because validating AI isn't just a one-time thing.
No.
It's a continuous process. We call it continuous monitoring and governance.
Continuous monitoring. So even after the AI is out there doing its thing, you still got to watch it.
Exactly, because AI models are always changing. They're learning and adapting based on the data they encounter.
Right.
So that means their behavior can change over time and new risks can pop up.
So it's like giving the AI a trial period, and you're constantly checking to make sure it's behaving.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
Continuous monitoring helps us catch things like data drift, which is when the real-world data the AI is seeing starts to look really different from the data it was trained on.
Can you give me an example of how that might happen?
Sure, imagine we've got an AI that's supposed to predict what customers are going to buy.
Okay.
Now imagine there's a sudden economic crash or a global pandemic. Suddenly, people's spending habits change drastically.
Right. So the AI is using outdated information because the world is different now.
Exactly. And that's where continuous monitoring comes in.
Okay.
By tracking how the AI is performing over time, we can see these shifts happening, and we can retrain the AI with updated data if we need to.
So it's like giving the AI a refresher course
Yeah,
to keep it up to date.
exactly.
Right.
But it's not just about keeping the AI accurate. Continuous monitoring also helps us make sure it's still sticking to the rules about fairness and security that it was originally validated for.
So it's like a constant system of checks and balances to make sure the AI doesn't go rogue even as it learns and changes.
That's it. It's about building trust and accountability into the whole process of developing and using AI.
This is so fascinating.
It is.
We've uncovered so many layers of complexity in this world of AI validation.
I know, it's really interesting, isn't it?
It is, from adversarial attacks to data drift.
Uh-huh.
It's clear that there's a lot more to AI than just making it work.
For sure.
We got to make sure it's working the right way.
Exactly.
Okay, so this has been a wild ride so far. We've learned so much
It has been, yeah.
about the world of AI model validation.
We've covered a lot.
I'm starting to understand just how much effort and how much smarts goes into making sure these AI systems are trustworthy and that they do what they're supposed to.
It's amazing all the work that's going on.
It is, and you know what? I'm actually really curious to hear more
Oh, good.
about some real-world examples of how this validation is done in different industries.
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive into some of that.
Okay, let's do it.
Awesome. I'm excited to share some more insights.
Great, team, me too.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
So I think finance is a great place to start.
Finance, okay.
It's a field where AI is already playing a huge role, but obviously the stakes are really high. We're talking about people's money and their livelihoods, so validation is super crucial.
Right, you don't want an AI making risky stock trades or denying people loans because it gets its logic twisted.
Definitely not, and that's why validating AI in finance is so challenging.
Yeah, what are some of the unique challenges in finance?
Well, one of the biggest is that financial markets are so complex.
Oh,
They're constantly moving up and down, influenced by all sorts of things from world events to just how people are feeling.
right.
So creating an AI that can predict these movements is incredibly hard.
It's like trying to predict the weather, but way more chaotic.
It is, and that's why validation in finance is more than just checking if the AI's predictions are right or wrong.
Okay.
We need to understand how the AI is making its predictions and make sure it's not making risky bets based on faulty reasoning.
So it's not just about being accurate, but about managing risk and making sure the AI isn't gambling with people's money.
Exactly. So financial institutions use techniques like stress testing to see how AI performs under extreme market conditions.
Stress testing.
Yeah.
Okay.
They simulate things like a sudden stock market crash or a huge jump in interest rates to see if the AI can handle the pressure and still make smart choices.
So it's like putting the AI through a financial boot camp to make sure it can handle a crisis.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And this kind of testing is really important for making sure the AI can manage risk and protect people's investments.
Okay.
Yeah.
I bet explainability is super important in finance too,
It is.
because people want to know why their money is being invested a certain way, especially if it's an AI making the decisions.
Definitely.
Right.
Imagine an AI recommending that you sell a certain stock. Investors would want to know why the AI thinks that stock's going to drop. What information is it using?
Yeah, they wouldn't just blindly trust a black box algorithm no matter how good its track record is.
Nope. So financial institutions are putting a lot of effort into explainability techniques that can actually tell investors what's going on inside the AI's decision-making process.
Right.
This helps build trust and make sure the AI's actions are transparent and make sense with the investor's goals.
Right.
Yeah.
So finance is an area where AI validation
Hmm.
seems to be pretty advanced. What about other industries? Are they catching up?
Oh, they are, for sure. Another area where AI is making a big difference is healthcare.
Healthcare. Okay.
And here, the challenges are even more complex because we're dealing with people's health and well-being.
Yeah, the stakes are high. You don't want an AI misdiagnosing someone or recommending the wrong treatment.
Exactly. So validation in healthcare often involves this multi-layered approach that's kind of like how we do clinical trials for new drugs or medical devices.
So they're treating the AI almost like a new medicine that needs to be rigorously tested before they can give it to patients.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
They test the AI on huge data sets of patient records and compare it to what human experts would do.
Mm-hmm.
And they really carefully monitor how it's impacting patients.
It sounds like they're being super careful.
They are. And one of the key things they focus on is making sure the AI is not only accurate, but also generalizable.
Generalizable, what does that mean in healthcare?
Well, it means that the AI should be able to work well on all kinds of patients, not just the ones who are similar to the patients that it learned from.
So if an AI is trained on data from a hospital in a big city, it should also be able to work in a rural clinic or even in a different country.
Exactly, because healthcare data can be super different, depending on where you are, what kind of access to care people have, and even what diseases are more common in a certain area.
Right.
So making sure the AI can handle all this variety is crucial.
That makes sense. So how do they test for that?
Well,
Do they just try it out on different groups of patients and see what happens?
it's a little more systematic than that. They use techniques like cross-validation, where they train the AI on one set of data and then test it on a completely separate set.
So it's like giving the AI a surprise quiz to see if it can apply what it learned to a new group of patients.
Exactly. And if the AI does well on this new data, it's a good sign that it can work in different healthcare settings.
That's really interesting. Healthcare is all about personalized care. So you want an AI that can handle each person's unique needs and not just follow the same rules for everyone.
That's a great point. And this focus on generalizability is becoming more and more important as we use AI in more and more areas of life.
Okay, so it's a general principle of good AI validation, making sure it can handle the real world with all its messiness and not just the perfect world of the training data.
You got it. And that brings us to another really interesting area of AI validation, the development of autonomous systems like self-driving cars and robots.
Oh yeah, those are definitely areas where AI is capturing everyone's imagination, but also where the risks are potentially the highest.
Yeah, definitely if a self-driving car crashes, it could be disastrous. So the validation for these systems is extremely rigorous.
Uh-huh.
They use simulations, they test them in closed courses, and they even do really carefully controlled real-world tests.
Right. You don't want to just let a self-driving car loose on the highway without making sure it can handle all the crazy things that happen in traffic.
No way. And one of the big challenges is making sure the AI can handle pretty much any situation it might encounter.
Right. A human driver can use their experience and intuition, but an AI needs to be programmed to handle every possibility.
Exactly. And that's why simulations are so important. Companies working on self-driving cars are creating incredibly detailed virtual worlds
Wow.
where they can test their AI against tons of different scenarios.
So like driving in the rain or snow or navigating construction zones or even dealing with pedestrians who aren't paying attention.
All that and more.
Wow.
They simulate everything from fender benders to huge pileups
Wow.
to see how the AI responds and make sure it always puts safety first.
It's like giving the AI drivers Ed on steroids.
Exactly. But even with all those simulations, they still have to do real-world tests.
Right. Simulations are great,
Yeah.
but they can't capture everything about the real world.
That's right. So once the AI proves itself in the virtual world,
Okay.
it's time to take it out for a spin in a more controlled environment.
So like those closed courses where they can test how well the AI follows traffic laws and how it interacts with other vehicles.
Exactly. These tests help us bridge the gap between simulations and the open road.
Okay.
They let engineers watch how the AI behaves in a realistic setting, but in a safer way.
It's like a stepping stone to letting the AI drive on its own.
Yeah.
So they can slowly introduce the AI to real-world complexity.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And even when the AI passes all these tests and we think it's ready for the real world, the validation doesn't stop there.
Okay.
Continuous monitoring is still super important to make sure the AI keeps operating safely and reliably as it learns more and more.
So it's like a never-ending cycle of testing, learning, and adapting.
It is.
Wow, this has been really fascinating.
Yeah.
We've learned so much about the challenges and innovations in AI validation.
It is a fascinating field for sure.
I'm starting to see how much work goes into making sure AI is trustworthy and safe to use,
It's definitely not easy.
and I'm excited to hear more about what's coming next.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the world of AI validation.
Okay.
A lot of new techniques and trends that are shaping how we're going to make sure AI is reliable in the future.
All right, I'm ready for more.
Great. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into the future of AI validation.
Sounds good to me.
All right, see you in a bit.
Okay. All right, so we left off talking about how AI validation is a journey and not just a one-time check.
Right, it's this ongoing process.
Yeah, so let's talk about the future of AI validation.
Right.
What's coming up? What new challenges are we facing, and how are we going to tackle them?
Well, as AI gets even smarter and more complex and more woven into our lives, the validation process has to keep up.
Right.
And one of the biggest trends right now is this push for even more explainability.
Okay, we talked about that a little earlier, the idea of being able to understand why an AI makes a certain decision instead of just blindly trusting it.
Exactly. But as these AI models get more advanced, especially with deep learning, it's getting harder to understand how they work.
Okay.
It's like trying to understand the thoughts of a genius, but with a completely different way of thinking.
Right, so how do we crack the code? Are we working on some kind of AI to English dictionary?
Well, it's not quite that simple.
Oh, okay.
But researchers are coming up with some really cool new techniques, like new methods that can actually visualize how deep neural networks make decisions.
Visualize how they make decisions.
Yeah, imagine like a heat map showing which factors have the most influence on an AI's predictions.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So instead of just getting a yes or no,
Yeah.
you can actually see what information the AI is paying attention to.
Exactly. And this kind of transparency is so important for building trust in AI, especially in areas like healthcare, where the decisions can be really serious.
Right, okay, so imagine an AI that's diagnosing a patient with a rare disease.
Yeah.
Doctors would definitely want to know why the AI came to that conclusion.
They would, and they'd want to know what patterns in the patient's data led the AI to that diagnosis.
So it's like having an AI doctor that can not only diagnose you, but also explain its thinking in a way that human doctors can understand.
Oh, exactly. And this level of explainability is not just about trust. It's also about being able to spot potential bias or errors in the AI's decision-making.
Right, because even the smartest AI can still have blind spots or biases.
That's right, especially if the data it was trained on wasn't perfect or complete.
And that brings us to another new trend.
Yeah.
The increasing use of what they call human-in-the-loop systems.
Yeah, these systems are really interesting.
So is this about bringing humans back into the mix instead of letting the AI do everything on its own?
Yeah, it's recognizing that AI is powerful, but it's not perfect.
Okay.
There are still situations where human judgment and intuition are crucial.
So it's like a partnership where AI can offer insights and make suggestions, but a human expert ultimately makes the final decision.
Exactly. Think of it like an AI doctor working alongside a human doctor.
Okay.
The AI can analyze tons of data and find patterns and suggest potential diagnoses or treatments, but the human doctor brings their experience and empathy and understanding of the patient to make sure the final decision is both accurate and the right thing to do.
That makes a lot of sense. AI is great at crunching numbers, but there's still that human element that's so important.
There is, especially when it comes to sensitive decisions.
Yeah, and this trend towards these human-in-the-loop systems
Yeah.
is probably going to keep growing as AI gets used in more and more areas like healthcare, law, and finance.
It is, for sure.
But this brings up another question.
Okay.
As AI becomes more powerful, are our laws and ethical guidelines keeping up?
That's a great question. And honestly, a lot of our current regulations were created before AI was really a thing.
Right.
And they might not be enough to deal with the unique challenges that come with these new technologies.
Yeah, like what happens if a self-driving car causes an accident? Who's responsible?
Right.
Is it the person in the driver's seat, even if they weren't actually in control? Or the company that built the AI?
Those are the kind of tough legal questions that we're starting to face.
Right. It's not always clear who's to blame when things go wrong.
And it's not just about legal responsibility, it's also about ethical considerations.
Yeah, for sure.
As AI gets smarter, it brings up a lot of really deep ethical questions about fairness, transparency, and even our own freedom as humans.
Exactly. Like, How do we make sure AI isn't used to discriminate against certain groups or to manipulate people?
Those are some of the big questions we need to answer.
Yeah, it's not just up to the people making the AI or the lawmakers to figure this out.
Right.
It's something we all need to be talking about and thinking about.
It is, because AI is going to affect everyone, and we need to make sure it's used for good.
Exactly. So what can we do?
Well, one of the most promising approaches is to actually build these ethical considerations into the AI validation process itself.
So instead of just checking to see if the AI works, we also need to make sure it's working in a way that aligns with our values.
That's the idea. It might involve things like testing for bias, doing audits for fairness, and even having real people use the AI and see how they feel about it.
Okay.
It's about moving beyond just the technical stuff and really evaluating the AI's moral compass.
Wow. That's a powerful idea. It's like
Yeah.
we're trying to teach AI not just how to think, but how to be good.
I like that.
It's amazing.
And it's a crucial step in making sure that AI makes our lives better and doesn't mess with our values.
This has been incredible.
Yeah.
We've gone so deep into AI validation, from the technical details to the ethical questions.
It's been a really interesting conversation.
And now we have a glimpse into what the future of this field might hold.
And it's a really exciting future. I think there's so much potential for AI to do good in the world.
I agree.
But we have to be smart about it.
Yeah.
We have to keep asking those tough questions and
Yeah.
make sure we're building and using AI in a responsible way.
This has been a truly eye-opening conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI model validation.
It's been my pleasure, and remember, everyone, the quest for responsible AI is a journey we're all on together.
And we'll be back soon with another deep dive into the exciting world of technology and its impact on our lives.
Yeah.
So until then, stay curious. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground talking about making sure AI is safe and reliable.
We have.
From finance to healthcare to self-driving cars.
It's pretty amazing how AI is being used in so many different areas.
It is, and now it's time to look ahead to the future of AI validation.
Right, the future sounds exciting.
It is. What's on the horizon? What new challenges are we facing, and how are we going to tackle them?
Well, as AI keeps evolving, getting smarter, more complex, and even more integrated into our lives, the validation process needs to evolve too.
Makes sense.
And one of the big trends we're seeing is this push for even greater explainability.
Right, we talked about that before. Understanding why an AI makes a decision, not just taking its word for it.
Exactly, and it's becoming even more important as AI models get more and more sophisticated, especially with the rise of deep learning.
Right, it's like trying to understand the thought process of a super advanced alien brain.
It kind of is, and that's the challenge.
So how do we do it?
Well, researchers are working on some really interesting new techniques.
Like what?
For example, there are new methods that can actually visualize the decision-making process of deep neural networks.
Visualize?
Yeah, imagine creating a heat map that shows you which factors are most important in an AI's prediction.
Oh, that's cool. So instead of just getting a yes or no answer, you can actually see what data points the AI is focusing on.
Exactly, and that kind of transparency is crucial if we want people to really trust AI, especially in high-stakes areas like healthcare.
Right. Imagine an AI diagnosing a patient with a rare disease. Doctors would definitely want to understand what led the AI to that conclusion.
They would. They'd want to know which patterns in the patient's data the AI was looking at.
So it's almost like having an AI doctor that can explain its reasoning in a way that humans can understand.
Exactly, and that level of explainability isn't just about trust. It's also about being able to catch any potential biases or errors in the AI's decision-making.
Right, because even the most advanced AI can still make mistakes, especially if the data it learned from was flawed or incomplete.
Exactly, and that brings us to another emerging trend, the increasing use of human-in-the-loop systems.
Okay, human in the loop, what does that mean?
It's about recognizing that AI is incredibly powerful, but it's not perfect, and there are still situations where human judgment is essential.
So it's like a partnership. AI provides the insights and recommendations, but a human expert makes the final call.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it.
It's like having an AI doctor and a human doctor working together. The AI can analyze massive amounts of data and suggest diagnoses or treatments, but the human doctor brings their experience, their empathy, and their understanding of the patient to the table.
Right, they can make sure the final decision is the right one for that specific person.
Exactly. And we're going to see more and more of these human-in-the-loop systems as AI becomes more common in areas like healthcare law and finance.
That makes sense. But this brings up another important question. Are our current laws and ethical guidelines keeping up with all these advancements in AI?
That's a really good question. A lot of our current regulations were developed before AI was really a thing, so they may not be enough to deal with the new challenges we're facing.
Right, like what happens if a self-driving car causes an accident? Who's responsible? The person in the car, even if they weren't driving, or the company that made the AI?
Those are the kinds of questions we need to answer. We need new frameworks for accountability in an AI-driven world.
It's not just about legal liability either. It's about ethical considerations too.
Absolutely. As AI becomes more sophisticated, it raises all sorts of ethical questions about fairness, transparency, and even human autonomy.
Like, how do we prevent AI from being used to discriminate against certain groups or to manipulate people?
Those are some of the big ethical challenges we need to address, and it's not just up to the people developing AI or the policymakers. It's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
AI is going to affect all of us, so we need to think carefully about how we want to shape its future and make sure it's used for good.
I completely agree. And one way to do that is to build those ethical considerations right into the AI validation process.
So instead of just checking if the AI works technically, we also need to evaluate if it's aligned with our values.
Exactly. It's about making sure the AI not only knows how to think, but also knows how to act ethically.
That's a really powerful idea.
And it's essential if we want to create a future where AI truly benefits humanity.
This has been an incredible journey. We've explored the technical side of AI validation, the ethical dilemmas, and even got a glimpse into what the future holds.
It has been fascinating, and it's important to remember that this is an ongoing journey. The quest for responsible AI is something we're all in together.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI model validation. It's been an amazing conversation.
My pleasure. It's been great talking with you. And remember, everyone, keep asking those tough questions. And let's work together to create a future where AI makes the world a better place.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.